Hi, how are you? Hi, but I felt like you were our staff.
Right.
Hey, Joseph or Joe. Nice to meet you. We see each other. Yeah, I know. It's nice to see people in person.
At least got one here.
It was like alien. You can look up to like
Okay, good, good.
and then they
That's awesome.
we have to talk to the county and then the county. Yes.
Well, I always said that.
They do.
There were nothing like responses.
I know.
All of that. It's too evident for us.
This is like the last meeting.
So my.
Meeting. Hey, let's get back to being in person.
I would just kind of semi.
Yeah.
Mike, you didn't bring Sanford. What's up?
I know, I've thought about it, and I really want to go back to the office after this.
Well played, sir. Well played. You sound like me.
Need 9.
We had to chop up the cops in half, you know. And so, and I'm just trying to know if I was gonna make it, but I
I just can't see.
You can't seem to stop.
she lives down off Old and Redmond Highway.
We have 9.
Off about 2:45.
Shannon's here for Holly.
Have no excuse. I'm already this far. I might as well keep on going.
We just kind of.
Oh, I don't count myself.
It all turned out fine. Chief Ratzick is on Zoom.
Here he comes.
Chief Lewis, Chief Krantz.
Yeah, you passed.
And it was
Hello.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everybody was more like. Like a worker.
Name tags, like official.
There is a definition.
Just like.
Person with.
Yeah, they love it. Yes, they love it. They're not the biggest fan of Eugene.
Yeah, but I think maybe understanding.
I get it. Like they just sure there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. You're getting.
They're okay with that kind of stuff. I think works just in the city. It's like gray and gray, right? I mean, it's interesting.
Like I have a show at my house.
It's balanced now. It's 2 of us, 2 of them.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I reached out to Dial.
I think I was. Okay.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Well,
Do you go to the Sisters Club?
we're having
Sometimes.
just all of like a
Not like,
You go out.
I don't get there for the whole weekend. Most years I'll get there
Yes,
for
it's really nice to, congrats on getting that
a
done.
regular.
We like to go. My oldest boy plays fiddle, so sometimes in the like, the open woods part of it.
We're really happy with how it turned out. Yeah, initially it was like, oh, we're in the same spot.
He's getting there, he's just 13, so that's just now starting to happen. I'm trying to.
We just need to be out.
Musicians' lives.
I know.
It's like there's a lot.
Do you play as well? Or
Music. I play a little guitar.
More people that out interact with each other.
Maybe the snow would help.
No, being
No
sandwiched
interaction.
next to the
Play out with me.
We are
Kind
good
of.
with that.
Center broad music.
I usually don't. I really have a very low background. That's why it's so.
Great.
My husband does.
I know, right?
So I'm grateful that my kids pick that up. They does not get it from me. Right.
No,
Okay, never mind. I'm not even.
I don't think so.
You're gonna be presenting today.
Yes, I will help with.
All right, so, I noticed the first error, December 2nd, Tuesday, this is actually supposed to be a 3:33 start time. I'm just gonna make a note on my sheet. I'm a judge and I'm never wrong. So you're early and I'm on time, and we'll note that for next month's minutes. How's everybody doing? It's like you're real people, right? Like, I'd go over and like touch people, but there's like a whole module I'd have to take if I did that. Assume that it's really good to get together. Nice seeing everybody. Let's see. That's like the whole call to order part. So we'll check one. Let's just go around, right?
Welcome, Deschutes County Community Justice.
Sonia Little Deer Evans with Deschutes County Juvenile Community Justice.
Shannon Brister-Ragas with Deschutes County Behavioral Health, filling in for Holly Harris.
Donna Mills, citizen member.
Mike Riley, Bend City Councilor.
So Wild Trial Court Administrator.
Nick Levi, County Administrator.
I'm Eric Kropp with Deschutes County.
Devin Lewis, Chief of Police in Redmond.
Gil Levy with Kid Center.
Phil Chang, Deschutes County Commissioner.
Whitey Wyko Magden, Deschutes Delinquency Court.
Abby Rowland, Saving Grace.
And Wells Ashby, presiding judge for 2 more weeks. It's great seeing, it really is good seeing everyone. I know it's difficult to get here in person, but.
Come on, my folks.
Oh yeah, who do we have? Oh yeah. Who do we have online?
Good afternoon, everybody. I apologize for not being there in person. This is Pete Rasick, the police chief down in Sun River.
Excellent, good afternoon. Let's see, Mr. Coe. Mr. Coe, good afternoon. Let's see. Public comment. Looks like we do we have any members of the public? Apparently not. And November 2025 minutes. Anyone's had a chance to review a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second.
Excellent. Any opposition? Minutes are approved. And we are on to item number 5, juvenile detention 2025 assessment. And why is that you, or is it Sonia?
It's all of us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hold on a second, Judge. Let me get myself sharing here. All right, and then hold on. Sorry, hold on. Okay. Just want to move that over here, actually.
I can't believe I'm the only one who likes cookies here.
I already too, Phil, I too, I promise.
Okay.
If there were donuts, I would have more.
There's a lot of cookies over there.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll give a presentation today, 4 of us, myself and Dee and Sonia and Gil. We've all been involved in the work group process that I think all of you know at least something about. But I'm just going to give a brief overview of how it was structured. So there's a work group with 15 members. We all met 5 times for 2 hours each, facilitated by Dee and Sonia. There's a structured process, and we'll get more into that a little bit later. But then out of that process, our work group, through a consensus process, came up with a recommendation for this group. And that's what you'll see today, along with the juvenile department's response. And then Gil.
Yeah, well, as you can see from the slide that's on the screen, we had a really nice, diverse group of individuals representing lots of different parts of the community involved in this group. A couple things that were noteworthy to me personally were that there were a lot of people in the group whose professional organization affiliation was connected very directly to juvenile detention, and any changes there would have a real impact on that department's work, that person's work. And so they brought that kind of a perspective. I think there were also people in the group who were maybe just representative of a section of the community who weren't necessarily as directly tied on a daily basis to the work of detention. So I think there was some interesting interplay there with just different kind of points of view and people coming at it from different perspectives, which was great. Also, there's, this isn't listed up here, but along with the folks that were at the table, we also had lots of the staff from the detention team meeting with us, and they were really invaluable to that process. And so I realized they're not being counted in the advisory group or in a formal way, but Rob and all of your colleagues were really, really helpful. A lot of the members of the group, I think, had real questions about what changes might look like, what kind of impacts there would be, and having the staff there to really talk that through in real time was important.
We introduce you guys,
We did not.
or did you introduce yourself?
We did not do that, yeah.
Can we just do a quick pause behind us starting here?
Yeah, I'm Trevor Stevens. I'm the business manager for community justice.
Robert Gilman, I'm the detention manager. Lee Randall, facilities for Deschutes County.
Thank you. And Trevor is our budget person, so he may kick in. And also Angie, thank you for being here. This is Angie Powers, who runs everything behind the scenes in a beautiful way. Thank you. All right, so I have a couple slides to share. So in your packets, we sent the full report and then all the attachments of all the different meetings. So there was, I think, if you looked at it, it was rather thick. So today we're not going to go through that point by point, but sort of pulled out what we thought was the most relevant. If you have a question though on the actual report, any detailed questions, we're able to respond to that as well. So
Yeah, real quick question. So I had a chance to run through the attachment before the meeting. What was the genesis of this? Was it really, hey, our population's been low for a long time, or budget, or both?
it's like we rehearsed this. Fun time,
You're
Judge.
welcome.
You can never not be the chair. Why are we here? What happened? So essentially, two things really. The changes in the need that we have for detention have been going on, and we'll get into that a little bit. And the real immediate impetus, that's been going on for some time. But the more immediate impetus is that budget challenges in the county general fund are affecting our ability to do detention and 24/7 response services. I was asked as a department head of this department to look into with the community what was actually happening currently, and then what might we do instead. And that happened I'm looking at Eric because my official request was from Eric, who's sitting there, in July, I think.
There was a discussion with the budget committee and previous budget committees. So we at the direction of the budget committee, agreed to take a look at it. I actually had a memo that I gave Dee that kind of outlined the approach and charge.
Yeah, the memo, the request, the budget committee, and certainly the committee that got together to do this work over 5 different meetings had this a consensus understanding that while things are changing, detention and juvenile 24/7 response services are necessary and vital. This is statutorily they're necessary, community safety wise they're necessary and vital, and in a whole bunch of other different ways they're vital. So it wasn't a question of if we do it. It was really about how. How does this happen in the times in which we find ourselves? So after I received that memo from Eric, as Gil mentioned, we gathered, made invitations, asked numerous community partners from law enforcement, from public safety, as Gil also mentioned, a diverse group, some not from that space, to come together and look at our current practices and then help us identify and assess if and which kinds of alternatives there might be. And that report that I attached in the agenda for today is the result of that work. So we're presenting today in a request for you all as this group, as the public safety leaders in our county, to consider a recommendation to approve or to support this finding that the community did. So there is an action item coming out of today's presentation. Does that answer? We'll get into a little bit more as well, Judge, but.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And this recommendation goes to BOCC or Budget Committee?
You should just do the presentation.
Jeez.
He's a plant.
Great, queued you up. So today is part of a broader process. You can see here, starting in September, October, and it going all the way till plus minus July of soon to be next year. And we, of course, are right here. We're sharing this recommendation. So for the past 3-4 months, we've been doing all of this assessment. Today, we're here with you. After today, what I will do is share our report, our findings, our recommendation, and then any thoughts, considerations, or approvals that this group may offer to essentially the Budget Committee. The county commissioners are aware of our process. They're aware of our findings generally. They, of course, are a huge part of the Budget Committee. 2 of them are right here. But we have some community members who are part of the Budget Committee who would not have seen this yet. So that's kind of how this process will go. And we'll move then sometime starting in 2026 through the county's normal budget process to make a budget request that is in alignment with where the consensus is building. Any questions there, Judge? Want to do it again? See if we can. Ask me a question. No, just kidding.
I'm just gonna listen because it's like your presentation wouldn't be thorough. It's insulting to you. I'm done.
It's not. Oh my goodness. So we'll give you a little bit of background, again, very condensed, but background, more detail even than I just provided today. We'll walk you through what that assessment process looked like at a 30,000 foot level. This is so slow. We'll look at the options considered. These are taken directly from that final report. So if you've had a chance to look at a very colorful table, that's what we'll be looking at. Bear with us. We'll go through it bit by bit. We'll share with you and dig in a little bit more to what the recommended option is. And then because that was a community process, not a department decision, what I'll also share is what the outlook I see and we see from our point of view as department managers and leaders. And then I think Judge Michael Magden will lead us in a couple of Q&A unless we've already exhausted that. So if you have questions as we go, as we've seen, as we rehearsed, definitely ask as we go. Ultimately, we do want that consideration of a vote on a recommended option. All right, let's dig in.
All right. Yeah, so just a little bit of the 30,000 foot view, just some context, background of what we brought into that space with the community partners. So definitely one of the drivers that we lifted up in there is just understanding of the budget constraints. Our department has been asked as a general fund department that's 90% funded by county general fund to look at balancing over 5 years with that limited growth information. And then with that is our detention population. So as Devi already mentioned, our detention admissions have been down. Probably it's been steadily going down for like 15 years over the last 10, actually 11 now, counting 2025. That decrease has been 70%. I think in this past year, it actually has even decreased a little bit more. So just holding that and what that might mean, despite knowing that it's a vital service. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that folks understood is when you operate a 24/7 facility, regardless of whether you have 16 youth or 1 youth, there's certain things you have to do and you have to have available all the time, such as education, making sure that we have adequate gender staffing on all shifts, safety, making sure that we have enough staff to ensure safety should anything go south. And then health services, skill development, we do a lot of groups and skill building with young people when they are there. So making sure staff are proficient and keep up on their training. About half of the space, so in our detention facility, if you haven't been there, we have 4 housing units. And currently we rent 2 of them, half of the space out to a local nonprofit that runs programming there. And then we only use 2. So the other thing about that building is it's also 27 years old. And because it is built for secure confinement, it's really hard to remodel or repurpose it in a way that doesn't involve secure custody or something that's not youth centered. There's a lot of rules around mixing youth with adults in our line of work. One of the things that we also knew going in, but I really appreciated how the community stakeholder group really lifted this up, is thinking about detention as an insurance policy. Or sometimes we talk about it as a firehouse, right? It's really expensive to keep going all the time, but when something does go wrong, you really, really need it there. And we looked at that data from 2014. So over that 10 years, during that time, we had 1,500 times where youth were placed in detention to ensure immediate community safety, with the ability to decide whether or not they had a risk to the public. About 431 times over that 10 years, law enforcement was able to bring youth to that facility. And even though they didn't stay, we were able to assess and determine where's the safest place for them to go. So acting as, a kind of 24-hour response, even though detention wasn't used. And then all of the youth, regardless of what county they come from. So if you don't know, our facility also is used kind of as a regional facility. We're one of only 3 left on this side of the mountains. So regardless of what county they come from, all youth get a certain level of services. They get assessed, they kind of get triaged for what they need. They get offered any services, cared for, and we ensure their safety until such time as we have a safety plan for them to release to, whether that's back to family or a program. And so that's kind of like the highlights, I would say, of what was held during those 5 meetings with all of our stakeholders.
Is it just is it the 3 counties, Crook, Deschutes, and Jefferson, or is it a bigger region?
It's actually a bigger region. So Harney uses us. Sometimes we get young people from Baker. The nonprofit that operates a residential program in half of our building, those young people come from all over the state. So if they blow out, we usually hold them for 1 to 2 days until they can get back to their county. So really it's from all over, but yeah, definitely Eastern Oregon.
I would say, Sonia, if I may, I think it's all over the state of Oregon, because you guys are holding kids from Southern Oregon too. Southern Oregon all the way to Coos Bay. I've had kids being lodged here and they're from Coos Bay over there. I mean, I would say it's the whole state of Oregon. That's why I look at it. From my experience has been that.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about the residential programs we have here, whether they're drug and alcohol residential programs or OA programs that's not secure, but should a youth have something that would constitute a violation of their probation and they need to be held, they are from all over the state.
Yeah, or even if a youth is visiting here, lives in another county, isn't on supervision anywhere, but commits a crime. I mean, that's actually a very unique case where it's very, very good to have somewhere right now for our local law enforcement resources to have somewhere safe to house the youth. Okay. So yeah, this took a couple meetings to get through all the detail on this, but there you go, and a few bullet points.
Distilled.
So Davey, in terms of housing youth from other counties, I imagine that there's a revenue transfer from that. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that revenue neutral, revenue positive? I mean, obviously, we're not trying to run a for-profit youth detention. It sounds awful as I say it, but how does that land?
I would say it's revenue negative. Okay. Big time. Yeah, we currently operate on a per diem basis. So there's a statewide agreement that any detention facility will house a youth from another county for 24 hours, essentially, a night, free of charge. So that goes for Deschutes County somewhere else as well. After that, we will just charge a per day amount, which is currently $180 a day per youth. Some detention facilities in the state actually enter into more set contractual agreements with neighboring counties, particularly in the Valley. So like Clackamas County has a contractual agreement with Marion County Detention so that Marion County can at least count on whatever that revenue is. Ours is very haphazard and very, very low ratio compared to what an actual cost per day is.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So Deschutes County is subsidizing other Eastern Oregon counties for this service. Is that accurate?
I think that's probably, it's not just us that does that, that's the way it works. Yeah, no county that pays for detention is actually paying an actual cost for what that would be. So I think it's, your point though is true. The 7 counties in the state only that run detention centers are all grappling with this exact same issue.
Or the issue, if we raise it too much, then they'll go elsewhere. And so even though 180 doesn't cover the cost, it's better than nothing type of thing.
Yeah, I think we do take into account what other facilities are doing.
There's a piece of that. I mean, we're gonna have X number of staff to house for an X number of youth. So we're not by no means bringing in other county youth and then adding extra staffing for that. So it's we never go above our standard capacity for staffing.
So that's a good point. It doesn't cost us extra.
Right, it would still cost us the same whether their youth came here or not. So while it is a little revenue, it comes nowhere near to covering the cost of the personnel, which is the most expensive part of running a 24-hour facility.
Just one other comment. I really appreciate the data, because what I've heard off and on for the last couple of years is, well, there's only 1 or 2 youth in the facility. Why are we funding it to this level? And this really helps answer that question. This is very, very helpful. Thank you.
I know, I do think a firehouse analogy or an insurance policy analysis is the best one. And I also think it's fair, I think we talked about this in the committee. At some point, all of us, even who are carrying our own insurance, might ask, I wonder if we need that much insurance. You know, we do have to ask that question. But I think, Gil, it was actually you that said this in one of the meetings. There is no zero cost option for this service. There isn't. So it's an interesting, yeah. How do you think of it? You got to find that balance somewhere, which is what this wonderful committee helped us to do. Yes.
Just a comment on the question of youth coming from other counties. The group talked a lot about that, and I think there was a recognition that it isn't necessarily, shouldn't be any one county's responsibility to take that burden on for others. It's not necessarily something that's inherent to Deschutes County that we have to own that, but at the same time, recognizing that if we weren't here to do that, then you know there is a big burden on a huge swath of the state. So this is a broader resource. We're not necessarily subsidize it for everybody, but you know there will be a loss if it weren't here. So.
You know, on the adult parole and probation end with supervision, we had this cost study, and you know, in the ideal world, that cost study would have translated to the state, you know, providing adequate funding per person per day, you know, under supervision, which you know we're not getting. But I mean, just hearing about this sort of race to the bottom problem with these juvenile detention facilities, I'm wondering if a cost study might be useful for this, and then you know kind of just have all the can we swear on the pinky promise that they're going to not undercut each other and you know come up with an appropriate bottom for charging. And I mean, would there be use or value in that?
You know, I think so. There is a slow movement starting that's very cognizant of our current statewide federal fiscal situation that we're in. So I don't think we'll see any proposals certainly this short session, or maybe not even the next long session. But the counties who have juvenile detention facilities really need to engage with the state of Oregon in a conversation about what is it that we collectively provide the state juvenile justice system. Similarly to how the adult system has talked about justice reinvestment, right? I mean, we help keep prisons from not being built or from being overcrowded because of safe community supervision. It's not a direct ratio. Detention does not necessarily, it's not a primary form of supervision. It's pretty limited use. But it provides this extremely important service that everybody in the entire state benefits from in terms of livability and wellness and safety. So it's just been a do it if you want. It's your job, counties.
Because it's sort of like there's 7 counties that are bearing the costs and 29 counties that are getting the benefit. And if the 7 counties could just agree to, charge an adequate amount, then it turns into a revenue neutral, proposition for those 7 counties in relation to the 29 counties.
Certainly a shared burden, a more equitably shared burden. Yeah. All right, so if these were kind of the cold, hard facts of the matter. And of course, that's not the only reason you make a decision. You also bring values, principles to a decision. So we were very, very purposeful with the community advisory group who helped us with this to define what those might be. So I'm going to turn it over to Judge Michael-Magden.
So our process was a consensus-based process. And we had we have 4 primary goals up there. So the first one, current and future community safety needs. The second one, works within our budget constraints that exist now. Continues to provide safe and effective practices, and then finally operates in the best interests of victims, youth and families, and staff. So these 4 goals, we centered these 4 goals in each of our meetings. Our meetings were structured usually with a sort of an baseline information in the first part of the process, again facilitated by Devi and Sonia, but also juvenile department staff. We were placed in smaller groups so that when we interacted, and those small groups moved around so that we all interacted with each other. These are 2-hour meetings, so we spent some time with baseline information and sort of reorienting where we had landed the time before, but then also with structured discussion. And I think that's where the meat of this comes out, that we all interacted with each other and shared our values and our goals and how we get there. Those were very helpful. And then at the end of each session, there were inevitably concerns and questions and things we needed to deal with. Sometimes those could be dealt with in session, but frequently, usually Devi or Sonia had to do some work in between sessions. And so those questions and concerns would get addressed either by email, in between the sessions, or at the beginning of the next session. Of our 15 members, as I said, we all sort of got to know each other as we worked around this. There was great participation, in my view. Everybody engaged. Nobody just sat there and sort of went along. It was a room full of people who are capable and practiced in asserting what they think needs to happen. The end result was a consensus recommendation, meaning it would not be presented today if even one of us had objected to presenting it today. So we really are, all 15 of us, on the same page with this recommendation. I do want to say I have had the pleasure of being part of several processes recently, and this was a very well done consensus process. I really appreciate Devi and Sonia and the rest of the juvenile department for structuring it in a way that I think was productive and helpful, and allowed us, the 15 members, to make a decision.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We really held the group to the fire with these principles because it would be so easy to get way off track on really cool things or things that actually maybe even are different from statute or whatnot. So we really, we looked at statute, we looked at all the things that are within Deschutes County values and standards, all that. So that's how these appear. And we just kept assessing each option against all of the things that you said. So now we're going to hit the big colorful table. Might need some sugar. It's okay if you get up. Get a cookie. All right, so if you've looked in the report, this will be familiar. I actually had a page reference somewhere, but I don't. We looked at more items than you see here on the first left-hand column going down, but these are probably the primary driving things that I think we ended up talking about a lot, or are clearly the most important, or came into play when the group was talking and making its decision. So I'm going to present for you generally. I'm not going to go into too much detail other than you'll think I'm lying because this first one I just want to walk through what the logic is of how this looks. So it might take this one might take a second, but then after that you'll see it'll go fast. So as Sonia I think mentioned, staffing is the #1 expense of a county budget. I think it's probably the #1 expense of any enterprise, public or private. So first thing is what's happening? How many staff does this thing require? We just need to know that. Next, what's the percent of time in a day, let's say a work day, that a supervisor or a manager needs to cover a security or programming shift on the floor, right? And you can see the second column over is what we're currently budgeted for. So just as an example. So total staff currently budgeted in this year for 20 staff to run detention. How many, if we had 20 staff running detention and we were all those positions were filled, which hasn't been the case for 5 years, but hence you see 11% of the time currently budgeted, although it's not current operations, it gets a little confusing, but if all things being equal and we were running things as budgeted and real life matched budget, detention manager or supervisors would need to spend about 11% of the time covering shifts due to call outs or whatnot. Not too bad, right? What's the annual cost of that enterprise is $3.9 million per year. And, add 5%, 6% in normal course of business to that. And that's how that increases annually. Over, under budget, I'll spend a little bit of time here. So you will see across all of our options, we have this exact same assessment. What Trevor, our Wonder budget person, did is take each option, and we were continually recalculating and reconfiguring when we were looking at different options. What is this going to cost every single fiscal year from now until fiscal year 30, which was what our request was from our county administration. We need to see a balanced budget for the next 5 years. So the assessment was, does this option balance our budget? And if it doesn't, you're going to see it in red. That's your first clue. And then there's going to be a fiscal year number right at the beginning. So in this one, you see FY27 / $780,000. We were underwater, right? Over budget, underwater by getting close to a little more than $750,000 starting next fiscal year if we kept doing the same thing. Does that make sense? So you'll see this in all of this. So just keep an eye out. The fiscal year at which things make or break changes depending on the option. Then you'll see here, what was the primary pro or con priority of the factors that Judge Michael Magden just mentioned? There was tons, which is the figures on the bottom there. So there was 8 total priorities every single time we had to assess. Green, great. Yellow, red, this is a problem. This is definitely a problem, an immediate problem, or a very, very important problem with this option. But the 2 for the current budget that we're in, the biggest thing that it has in its favor is we absolutely are able to provide adequate community safety needs for the current need that we have for detention, and honestly, probably the next 20 years of projected detention need. That would be, so that's great. But the biggest con, of course, is that, that's a terrible way to say that in our world. The biggest drawback is that it's not sustainable. So then you can see as it covered, it otherwise had a lot of good things going for it, but the thing it doesn't have going for it is a real problem. All right, so that's our baseline, yeah? Any questions on that logic? All right. All right, so this is a slightly different order, friends, than we talked about before because it got too confusing to hop back and forth. But we'll wait for your piece. One of the options we presented the community with was essentially eliminate a local detention facility. This is the absolutely most maximum budget decision that we could have made. So we did do some pretty extensive research on what that might look like. And you can see, let's just go down the line. If we did that, we would still need to provide detention services to youth in some other county's detention facilities. So we would need 24/7 assessment services still available. So we still need staff 24/7 a day. We still need money and transportation and other kinds of services and support to drive young people at the various times of need to and from detention, and then other associated costs. So again, there's no cost option. This was the lowest cost option. You can see the big factor there is it cuts the staff in half by, just about in half. So then you can kind of see on down the line how that option fared. I'm not going to talk too much more about it because this was obviously a very, very attractive option from the point of view of budget. But Judge Michael Magnin is going to talk a little bit about why this, I guess, alert, this is not the option chosen. So that was the big one, right? That's kind of I hate this expression, but it's kind of the nuclear option. Like this is as tightly as we could go. So we also initially presented two different options that we called reduced footprint. And Lee, if you have anything to add for sure, but footprint here, before we even convened the community members, we asked and worked with Lee from facilities, county facilities, on whether any structural modification could make any huge dent. And because of the factor Sonia mentioned, you just have to have certain numbers of staff to do certain amount of work, regardless of how much space you have. It didn't. So footprint here means staff or overall cost footprint. It doesn't mean building footprint exactly. So you can see the difference between the two options. Again, going just a point of reference, it goes from 20 current budgeted FTE with that most extreme option called C on this table to 14.8. So that was an option, and you can see we're in the green there, which is great. Like we actually, that one means we balance every single year, and when we get to FY30, we're actually over. I mean, we're in the green here by $300,000. We have more than we would need. That option felt like we could definitely still maintain our current need because we still have that facility. We still have a basic staffing level. What's in red there is that staffing level is really tight. It's right to the bone. You have not 4 or 5 people on duty at any given shift. At the busiest times, you have 2 or 3 only, right? So there's very little room for maneuver, and you can see 50% of the time that would require, we estimated, a supervisor or a detention manager to be covering like a basic shift. So it's really tight to the bone, but Rob and his folks did a great job saying that is as tight as we can get, but we think we could probably do that. So we presented that option, and then we presented option A, which is it's a very similar approach. Reduce the staff, reduce the number of staff you have on at any given time, but it's less extreme. So why it's A and C, this is probably quite obvious, especially if you read it. B is where the group asked us to go, which was funny because we probably should have taken bets before we presented that to the group. There was 16.8 and 14.8. So some clever person on the committee said, well, what does 15.8 look like? And that's what 15. So these were the options we discussed, the sum total of them. We talked at our first meeting about what is currently budgeted, the pros, the cons. Second and third meetings, we looked at the reduced footprint options. And then I think the third or fourth meeting, we looked at this big kind of 24/7 assessment services only option. So Gail's going to talk a little bit about how we arrived at option B, which is what it's called now in my mind forever and ever. But it's this reduced footprint capacity, letter B. But before that, if Judge, you might share, here's this beautiful option for the budget. It looked so great. We could do so many things. Why did the group not choose that? Sure.
So the final option, no detention center. For me, and I think a lot of people in the room, what was really appealing about that one is the 3.6 million in green and all the things we could do with that kind of money. The support, the treatment, supervision services that we might provide in the community to help young people do all the things we care about in juvenile justice. That was really, really appealing to a lot of us. So saying no to it, there's very specific reasons why we did that. I broke it down into 3 basic categories. The first category is lack of control over detention. So no matter what we do, at least for the foreseeable future, we are sometimes going to have to detain young people. Deschutes County, in my opinion, I think most of our opinion, does a really good job of detention. It's a safe, healthy facility. It provides services, it provides schooling, it provides good social interactions. If a person has to be locked up, it's a good place to be. If we shut down this facility, then we have to send them somewhere else. And I'm not saying anybody else's detention facility is bad, it's just that we don't have control over it. We don't get to decide what's there and how our young people are being treated while the process is going on. And that control was important to us. The next one is risk and liability in terms of transport. So again, young people are still going to be detained sometimes. And if it's not here, then it's somewhere else. It's probably on the west side, which means traveling across the mountains, sometimes in winter, sometimes late at night. It also means those young people can't come to court. So currently the detention facility is attached to the court. So people who are in detention still come to court, and those in-person appearances are important. They're more impactful. And then finally, and to some of us, we included, this last one is perhaps the most important, is the separation from family and support services. So where we have to detain someone for the sake of community safety, we have not lost sight of the fact that our long-term goal is to return that young person to the community in a safe and responsible way. And part of doing that is when we detain them, we have to make sure we do the least amount of damage possible to the support and services that do exist that we want to support. And we do that best by keeping them in the community instead of sending them further away. So like specifically, a lot of young people come from families that have fewer resources. It's much harder for them to travel across the mountains and meet with their kid. Some of these young people are 13, 14 years old. While they're in detention, they might not see their families because they can't get there. So for the sake of both protecting the community from the immediate possible harm, but still keeping our eye on the ball of making sure that the young person has the resources they need in the long term to return safely to the community, is a very important reason to maintain a detention service here. So that's why we said no to that last one, in spite of like the Christmas money for other things. Yeah.
Families accessing their children a lot. I mean, is that a high utilization rate of, hey, we want to keep that, and families do show up, they do come over and.
Families absolutely show up. I can't think of a single young person right now who didn't have a family visit them while they're in detention.
Well, that's great. Okay,
I do think it's important.
thank you.
Related question, is there data analysis or evidence that shows that having those connections, being able to connect to your people in your community leads to better outcomes for kids who are going through detention than not?
So in the broadest sense, absolutely that data is out there. I'm not aware of a specific study about, detention in the community versus detention at a distance, but maybe Sonia,
Yeah, I think what we referenced during our stakeholder or committee was the data out there that's around when we remove young people from their communities. There's just, on the education front, on the family front, a lot of our youth are already in services. So when our youth are in our facility, they're, clinicians from behavioral health, from Rimrock, they come and see them there. School, we have school liaisons that help them transition back in. So on all of those bases, those like categories, we all know those are protective factors. Once you remove them from it, and I mean, OIA deals with this too, people going all the way across the state, that causes us disruption and it makes it harder to connect back. Those are all things that directly tie to risk to reoffend, to keep penetrating further into the system. So yeah, absolutely.
Or the inverse of risk, success in.
Exactly. They're either protective factors or risk factors.
I think for us with Oregon Youth Authority, family engagement is really big. And we try to work with the youth. We can see development and really how they turn out when they are really involved with their families closer. So we pay much attention with that. And just like Judge was talking about, when you think about juvenile detention across the state, I have never seen the best. I've been vocal about that since I moved up here. I've never seen the best juvenile detention like we have in the shoots. There's a lot of work that is involved. Not many juvenile detention offer this: mental health, family engagement, school work, support of, talk about medical. I mean, they do a lot of work as far as I'm concerned. You don't see that in many detention. You just get them, throwing them up and move on. But these are young people that are moving on. They're learning. So I think it's important that we really pay attention the work that the detention is doing in this community. And that's my opinion, working with the detention here closely. I have seen that. I keep in touch with a lot of supervisors across the state, and what you guys offer here is, you can't compare that with any other detention out there. So, I mean, with us as a state, it will be a loss. It will be a loss for us, for sure. If this is closed, or whatever reason will end up, it's going to be very difficult for the state government like us to try and work with small communities here. I mean, I thought I should just add on that.
Thank you. Okay. Gil, you want to sort of the converse, what was so great about this option?
Sure, yeah. This option, the group asked to see what it would look like. It was mentioned, it wasn't actually presented as an option initially. And I think in comparison to, could we go back to the one right before, just to look at the comparison on the budget? Sorry, DV, but that option A, if you look down at the bottom, we got 6 greens, 2 yellows, and no reds. That sounds great, except that one of our charges was to really look at the budget impact, and that puts us at $1 million deficit at fiscal year 30. And so that really doesn't meet the spirit of the ask that was given to us. And I think we felt some onus to take that seriously and not come back with something that, was not really what was asked of us. So I think there was a sense that we need to maybe push harder on that. But then if you look at C, which was the initial option that we were given as sort of the next layer down, that puts supervisors at 50% floor time. And so that's taking a supervisor position and essentially cutting it in half and saying you're on the floor for half of your shift all the time. It does come up with a $300,000 surplus after 5 years. But we had some real red priorities there too. So that was concerning. I mean, the safety factor was lowered quite a bit. And as Stevie mentioned, that we're kind of walking on a razor's edge there when it comes to the staffing safety ratio and keeping that facility, as safe as it should be. And so we really wanted to ask, is there a middle ground here? And that's ultimately what this is. This is really the most balanced potential change that could be made. From a budget standpoint, we looked at $280,000 deficit in 5 years as, I don't mean to minimize that, but there was discussion about that. And it was, one of the things that was talked about was that that's workable, that there is a way to find that 280K somehow, perhaps elsewhere in the department. I mean, that's really close to what was asked. So I think the group felt better about that. The staff there felt like 15.8 staff team, is a pretty solid number that they could work with, that it felt like effective practices would continue, wouldn't really diminish the quality of the work happening. It would really not impact the safety as much. And ultimately, there were no red flags. And so really, it kind of just became pretty apparent that if that was doable, there might be the most wins, across the board out of this situation. And that's kind of where we landed. I think once we sort of looked at all those numbers, it sort of just became pretty clear to most members, I think. There was definitely some discussion around still feeling regret about even having to do that. I mean, it wasn't, I think if you look at the report and the consensus decision-making, there were some clear, I forget the term, acceptance. And then there was a couple that had like some slight reservation, but were willing to vote for it. So, I mean, that was the two groups that we fell in when it came time to decide this.
That deficit, that doesn't occur until that fiscal year, or is it annually also until then?
It does not occur until fiscal year 30.
So that's the outcome.
Yeah, that's the outcome.
But is that dependent on burning reserves each year in the years leading to?
You're already at a $780,000 deficit now, as I understand it.
When we were talking at the time that we were doing this without making any other changes in the budget, which we have subsequently done, there would have been some of that. Yeah.
Trevor, this includes annual escalators.
It does. Yeah. Those were pretty conservative estimates, so that's why we think that $280,000 is workable with this option.
Thank you. Going from 20 to 15.8. What are the kind of real and immediate impacts on current staff? I like, how many positions are you currently holding vacant? What kind of retirements do you anticipate? Things like that.
Yeah. It's just so perfect.
Now I'm your fault.
Yes. So, this is, until the last meeting or the last two meetings, we were working with the community group in a very theoretical way. Although, again, Trevor's budget is very, very detailed and we were moving it as we went. Those fourth and fifth meetings, a couple things began to change. One, we began to say, okay, it looks like the community group is really narrowing in on this version versus that version. So let's really think about what we would need to do to make that work. So we began to consider, and then soon after the committee made its decision, make some other changes in the department to help my entire department balance, not just detention, not just juvenile, but detention, juvenile detention, community, and adult parole and probation as one department. We made some changes. And then some natural attrition actually occurred in detention around that exact same time. Staff were obviously feeling very nervous through this whole process about what was going to be happening to them. So we have understandable people looking for other jobs. This person left just for that reason. That was why they left. So we found ourselves, interestingly, in that position. So I'm happy to report that we are actually at 15.8 FTE right now. We were never at 20 when we started. We were at 17, something like that, 18. So we are at 15.8 right now. So we're kind of living what it's going to mean and what the impact is. So this is our assessment of how workable this option is really in reality when the rubber hits the road. And I guess I'm here to say we can do it. We have confidence and we want the community, our budget committee, to give us the chance to try this for at least the next year and a half, because we think we can do it. It is budgetarily achievable. And with some of the other changes we have made, which unfortunately included position eliminations and layoffs in our juvenile probation services department recently, we can do this. And I mean, ultimately it's returning or not spending $2.5 million over this 5-year period. So, I mean, in that sense, I think we met the request that admin made for us, and the community helped us do that. We can still be safe and effective. It is a lot of time of the supervisors on the floor, but when the population is low, it's actually okay. This process helped us to change our mind. We had 5 and 4, 5, 4, 2, 5, 4, 2, like 5 people on 4 people on day, 5 people on swing, 2 people on grade, like forever. Or some version of that. These guys are like, yeah, right. Is that right? Is that the right
close.
number? Okay, close enough.
That's enough.
A certain number, a slightly bigger number, and then a small number, right? We've just been doing that, looking at the numbers, but we haven't really, we've naturally had to shift that, but we've never really thought, wait a minute, we don't actually need that many people when there's no youth or 3 youth versus 8 youth. We just don't. So I think over time, the staff have come to be more flexible and adaptive and not to be really working themselves up or be really scared if there's only 2 or 3 people on, right? So I think that's what we're finding. It is scary though. It is different. It definitely is requiring them to change, which that would be an immediate impact, I would say. It isn't the cheapest option that was selected. But this idea of not zero cost solution and the insurance policy was very compelling and helped me personally to think that this is a good use still of public money and able to defend it fully. And I guess the other thing it helped us do is the cost per day per youth is important. What our ADP is on any given day is very important, but it's not the only thing that matters. And it's okay if you don't have any youth in detention. I mean, what other world would we not be celebrating hugely that today we have no youth in detention unless somebody came in the last, right? We have no youth in detention right now.
You gotta go brown some up. It's gotta keep going.
Something after our last meeting, like I put 3 in detention. I was like, I am not trying to fix this.
We're wondering, we were like,
So it's really good news. It's a really great community success story. And the fact that it's expensive is the fact that it's expensive. That's our choice. We have the ability to make that choice or to make a different choice. And I feel so proud of the fact that we've been able to do that. Our recidivism in this county has not increased. This community is just as safe as it was when we had higher numbers of detention. So it's okay. It's going to be okay, is how I would feel about that. The one big thing it's absolutely going to require, though, is this 4th bullet point. We have to, and we've already begun to better integrate staff. Detention staff really almost used to be like their own little mini department.
Of course, upstairs and downstairs.
Upstairs and downstairs. Different, I mean, it's different
I'm trying
shifts.
to get away from that phrase though.
Right? We didn't have people doing both things, and that's just silly. That's learning on us. We should have got on board with that before this process, but moving forward, we need to do that. The staff are actually happier when they do that. The morale seems to be actually better when we do that. There's more integration. And with the model that we have, we are currently doing it right now. So just as an example, last week, we had detention staff helping us with reception upstairs. They're going to be helping with phone reception. They're going to be now helping with electronic monitoring of youth, putting on ankle bracelets and removing, which they just didn't used to do. Fingerprinting, a requirement of youth who come on to probation. Used to be done by probation. You had to go upstairs, come at a different time. I'm thinking that's just silly. We have 24/7 staff. Let's do that. Let's rethink. So it's a really cool opportunity in that sense, but it's also an absolute necessity. So if we can't do it, that's where we're going to start running into some issues. But ultimately, I would love for the community to not think of what's your detention cost and what's your probation services cost, but to ask what is our investment in juvenile community justice from the continuum all the way on. And that's the metric, and that's the per day that we look at. We don't just look at the detention. That would be my goal, and I think this process has really helped us to do that. Giving us another year and a half also allows us this time to see if this will work. It's never a good idea to pull the most drastic option immediately unless you absolutely have to. So my argument is going to be we don't have to do that right now. Give us 18 months at least. See if we can do it. And we started already, so that's where we're at. That's the department response. Anything else, Neil? All right.
Great process.
I'm conscious of time, so let's just move. I don't know, Judge, do you want to have official conversation on these topics, these questions here?
Well, I mean, I think we should at least offer it, right? Right. So the first 2 questions, and I think that they just go together. I think we would just ask each of you whether this recommendation meets your needs for your agency or your service area.
I mean, I could start by just, you know, as you were discussing the difference between, you know, the 24/7 assess and transport and all these other options. You know, the first thought that came to my mind is these are our kids. These are our kids, and you know, to keep them close to their families, to keep them close to their service providers, to keep them close to their judges, and the people who support them through the justice process. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that the evidence and data supports that leads to better outcomes. That's one of my biggest concerns with this is, you know, taking care of our kids. So I appreciate the thought that went into this and kind of the honing down to the option that's being recommended right now.
I think that's a great point. I just want to build on that. I mean, first of all, you know, I moved here 20 years ago, and there's always been something special about Deschutes County and Central Oregon in terms of collaboration and thinking beyond, you know, kind of, hey, this is my turf, that's your turf, and really just having that community spirit. You know, we work that way as a court with Crook Jeff. You know, what do you need? How can we help? And they're the same way. And, you know, Joseph's point was great. You know, the bulk of my work these days is major crimes settlement. And everyone I'm working with has trauma, like 100%. And I think about it just a step further. I try to encourage people, let me know how you're doing when you're released. A lot of these people are going to prison. And they're going to end up in some community, right? And it may not be here. It may be, you know, but in a very real sense, we're all in this together. I want them to be a good citizen in Newark. I want them to be a good citizen in Tallahassee, and for them to be successful and whatever that looks like. And, you know, by the time, and when I hear what Joseph says, it's, hey, we still have a real opportunity to change outcomes at the youth level, right? We really do. It gets harder. You know, like I said, a lot of the people I work with are really damaged. And it happened a long time ago. And it doesn't excuse the behavior. We have to deal with the situation at hand. But, you know, I've made an assumption that everybody who I see has experienced significant trauma, and I've yet to be wrong about that, especially in that space. And so this really seems like very thoughtful work. I'm so impressed by the human investment of, you know, all these people are so busy. And it just seems like, I mean, it's not my money to spend, you know, that's other decisions, but the value proposition seems super solid.
I think that I would like to akin it to it's preventative medicine. So we're not, you know, you're not in a stage 4 disease state, right? And you enter into this particular system. This is a good thing, even though we want to celebrate, right, that we have no youth in detention today, which is great. But for those youth that do enter detention, the probability that they're going to be before Judge Ashby is probably not very likely, because they will have gotten the tools and gotten the care they need before that trauma-informed care is necessary. Great job.
You know, we looked at this a few years ago when we started looking at handling juvenile DUIs out in the juvenile system. Because kids are different, right? And the services, they don't get to control their own lives. And so they may be coming from ecosystems that also need more intervention. And, you know, whereas the standard, you know, adult DUI, okay, do diversion, here are the steps, you don't do it, you know, do we conviction. And that's been a real positive, you know, on changing, you know, the trajectory.
I just would add, I'm going to speak from more of a personal level. My son was in the system for probably 6 or 8 years ago. And I can't imagine coming from a family with means, you know, it would have been very difficult for us if he was in another part of the state. And so I just really wanted to echo and support, you know, not choosing that option, the assess and transport option only. I just can't imagine for us how much more difficult it would have been engaging with the services, the success that we had with the various people that we engaged with, and what it would be like for a family. Again, to Commissioner Chang's point, these are our kids. What it'd be like for a family that doesn't have resources like we do to be able to then navigate that system, and the lower likelihood of success. So I'm happy to report he's a responsible adult in another community now, and hasn't re-engaged with the system. But this seems like a really good process. I really appreciate how thoughtful people have been going through it, and I think keeping that focus on this kind of insurance concept or preventative medicine, but also these are about our kids and our community. And obviously there's kids from other places, but if we can provide good services for kids in other communities who don't have that, that's an extra bonus for me. But this is about our kids and taking good care of them. And I think this is a smart choice. I was very worried about when the supervisor load as well, seeing those numbers. And I think it's a smarter choice to not overburden that group probably, so that they can help with the various parts of the system that they support outside of service.
I was going to mention from a law enforcement perspective, I know we had one of our captains, Steve Lopez, was on your guys' committee. So he was kind of keeping me updated from the first meeting when he came back and was talking about the potential of, you guys closing that, I think the transport option. That just, for some legality and statutory reasons, I don't think that's really would be a real feasible option for Central Oregon law enforcement. But going beyond that, just to echo what people have said, I think I know you guys put in a lot of hard work, so thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think the solution it makes sense for all the different, you guys are trying to balance a lot of different things. And I think, like you said, I think if we look at it more, it's not to get stuck in trying to balance a budget or what's always the cheapest option. And that's not what it's about. It is about, keeping our community safe and investing in juvenile justice. And we were talking about, a lot of times the most at-risk youth in our community. And I don't think that's the time to cut budgets, right? I think that's probably the time to invest. And so thank you for that.
Just like to commend the department and the committee on a very thoughtful process. I'm glad you looked at the option of the transport, because it is an option. It's a difficult one, but I'm glad that you included it in the analysis. So I just want to commend the department and the group.
I want to thank you for the department's leadership in facilitating and conducting the process. Thank all of you who participated. Thank those of you that supported your staff participating. Number one. Number two, the process was then executed just fantastic. In a short period of time, you really pulled it off. And then the analysis, you really balanced all the factors. As county administrator, I'm also the county's budget officer, which can result in tough decisions as we go through these processes, the budget process, and you were really mindful of all the balancing factors. And I think it's a really, really solid recommendation, and I'll certainly support it. And I think we all go back to Commissioner Chang's comment that these are our kids. Stevie's heard me say this many, many times, but my first month on this job, over visiting 20 departments and learning about all of the county's operations just over 4 years ago, while driving the compactor at the solid waste department was super cool. Nothing compared to my experience in juvenile. And I can almost get emotional when I say it, but I saw the chalkboard where the resident was at erased it every day, and it was days to see mom. And it was 8.
From a behavioral standpoint, kids staying in our community is huge. So not transporting out, and anytime kids are transported out, they get lost in the system, whether their insurance drops so they can't see a provider in another community, or the inability for us to continue to work with a parent to stabilize that environment for them to come home. We've got a partnership with Juvenile for my whole 20 years that we've been here, and us working together, I think it speaks to what you said, Judge. Other communities don't do that as well as we do. And so I like that that's not the option, and figuring out a way to keep kids here where we as a community can support them. Our schools come to the table. Everybody comes to the table. So it's it's really a critical thing that we do for our youth. That's great.
So besides the focus on our youth and besides the focus on our budget, one of my other concerns as a commissioner is for our employees, the staff of the Juvenile Justice Division. And I really appreciate that we don't have to eliminate anybody's job. I really appreciate that, this cross training that's going to happen is something that people are actually excited about. I am relieved, though also still concerned about kind of people's feeling of safety, wanting to make sure that people feel safe when they're on the floor, that they feel like there's enough of them that it is a safe working environment. And I mean, it sounds like this is going to work, but I will look forward to hearing feedback on that from staff, at a future point.
Definitely, thank you.
Can I just say something, and I don't get to speak for staff, but I really struggled with B for a while, and I wondered if we should stay at A. And it was actually the input of staff at those meetings that made me comfortable that we could go to B.
On the safety question.
Yeah, specifically, a staff member in particular said that she actually preferred B, that it could go there and that everybody would be safe. But again, I'm not telling you not to go ask.
Good to the trust and verify.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, and the thing too, and I really feel this way about this group, is if somebody in this group tells me that they can execute, I believe them, right? There's just a lot of credibility in this group. And, if Devi says, hey, we can do this, they're going to do it. And if it really becomes damaging, she's going to say something about it. And so it's just like, it's like Holly Harris. Right? What landing has she not stuck?
Holly and I actually wonder where the adults are that are going to help us.
I know, we talk about this often.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We will give it an absolute try. I have a lot of confidence in the staff and their determination and desire for continued employment in a meaningful way. So thank you so much. I am very cognizant of time. Gil, you want to?
Sure. Yeah.
Do the official?
Yeah. So I was asked if I would maybe make a recommendation. Let's see if the group would entertain a motion to request LIPSC's consideration to support the detention assessment community work group recommendation to continue to provide local detention and 24/7 services under the reduced staffing model on slide 8, option 2B, which is 15.8 FTEs.
So moved.
Second.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Very well done.
Thank you. We'll come back. We'll come back to this group and share how it's going.
So we're at the end of the agenda. Anything for the good of the order?
It's just great to see everybody in person.
Yeah.
Really great.
They do exist.
Donna still can't successfully retire, which is great.
Interim executive director for the Giving.
I mean, why not? I just wanted to thank everybody. I don't know if I'm still going to be a part of this group. I would guess not. Judge Miller is taking over as presiding judge. And I've been spending a lot of time really supporting him in that transition. You forget over the course of 8 years as PJ, I guess there's a little bit to it. I really have enjoyed working with all of you. If I don't stay with this group, it's just been a fantastic experience and a blessing. So thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
I don't love that.
No, we still want you to come.
I'll visit. But you know, it'll be nice to get back into court on a more regular basis, and I'm gonna still be working on settlements because I think they are really humane ways to work with victims and people who are really in tough situations, because trials can be pretty brutal in terms of outcomes. So, but thanks to all of you.
As your vice chair, thank you for chairing, and for those of you that might think about chairing next year, if you're not with us in January.
Talked to Judge Miller. I told him, I said, I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. He's been a great colleague, and yeah, it's good. You know, I think we all have a date on the milk carton in terms of ideas, energy, and you know, I didn't have the last good idea. I think one of me is plenty. I think it's always really good to get new folks in there. So I get it. It's been me for a long time, so.
Relationships and institutional knowledge are valuable as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very much. But can I borrow that? Date on my milk carton. Run out.